Career. I introduced myself to him after the Career Summit, which Caitlin said, of course, she remembered him from the Career Summit, and now she has the opportunity to work with his company, which is wonderful. But he's the CEO, we're founder and CEO of Mohuman. It's a technology nonprofit organization that helps underserved individuals have access to digital services. He's considered an entrepreneur in residence at the University of California, which is in San Diego. And he's on the executive board committee of the Federation of American Scientists. In 2020, he was recognized as by the FCC as the Digital Opportunity Equity Recognition for bridging the digital divide for American people during the pandemic. He is a South American villager, and he considers himself a North American accelerator of inclusive science, security, and next generation technology. He's really motivated he's really motivated by measurable impact and thrive on collaborations with other champions to improve the quality of life for people. And for over the last 5 years, he's been driven next generation smart and connect community strategies, technologies, policies, and implementation, both with the National Science Foundation and nonprofit US Ignite. So without further ado, I will let him tell us a little bit about his story, and afterwards we will have a Q&A session. Thank you, Dr. Mohan.
All right, thanks for inviting me. I got a special place for fellows and helping fellows, because let me tell you how my week is going. We onboarded a new chief of staff. We've got launching a new platform today, this week actually, and we're launching a new internet service for low-income and digitally underserved people next week, the pilot in San Diego, to provide high-speed, free, and low-cost internet during this time when the digital divide is such an accelerated and huge problem. So it was really busy, but I really wanted to make time to come talk to current fellows, because I remember when I was in your shoes a while back, and we had Affinity. Actually, that was the first time. It was during my time that we created affinity groups. We were all the fellows together, and then we decided, let's create affinity groups, and we started it, and I was a part of the big data affinity group and stuff. So, but every time I came to a AAAS fellows thing and I heard people talk about their trajectories and all of this, it was really exciting. It was really inspirational. But after that excitement was gone, I realized I wasn't any further than I was before in my mindset and helping me to get a job and my career going after the fellowship. So it's a very small group today, and I want to not just talk about myself, but about you all, and let's have a discussion about what do you want to know. I'm keeping it real. Like, I'm not gonna. There's glamorous stuff, but it's hard. It's been challenging. I wouldn't be doing anything else if I had a choice. But I want you guys to get what you want from this. And my goal at the end of this is for you to feel like, you got something out of it, and you also have resources to move forward. So let me do a quick little background. What was my aim in life, right? If you're thinking about entrepreneurship and your career and your life, like, what are some of your aims? Like, so my aims, there were a couple of things. I was always in academia in a nonprofit sector, but nonprofits weren't very sustainable. You have to be dependent on grants, donors, and all of these things. And I wanted to create, eventually I had this vision of a nonprofit for-profit model that can serve society, but at the same time be sustainable, right? And do amazing things. I wanted to be able to work from anywhere. I wanted to have great work-life balance if I could. I wanted global impact since I'm of international background. And I really wanted to focus on things that people weren't brave enough to do that's really forward thinking. I don't think you have to be an Elon Musk to save this world, and I wanted to show that as well. And the other thing from the fellowship and being in DC was that there were a lot of amazing people doing policy. I was doing this stuff, a lot of good think tanks, but they were so removed from the people that they served, right? And the policies they were making, that they were making decisions without understanding or directly interacting with the people that these things were meant to serve. And I just didn't like that. I needed that bridge between, you know, working with communities and people directly that I want to impact, and using that and working with them to drive policy instead of driving policy and then telling the people we're supposed to serve, hey, this is what it is, this is what you need, this is what we say you need, and this is what's going to happen to you. No, I want it to be like, okay, these are the problems that people are having. This is the best way to move forward, and let's co-develop that strategy with them. And hey, policymakers, here's what it is, right? And I've succeeded finally, I think, with Mohuman here. The last thing that I needed was my tribe, right? I tried really hard to find the same type of people with the same mindset to drive me and, you know, each other in this world. It was hard to find that because everybody's got their own thing going on. And I just got burned a lot of times by ideas being taken or just, you know, not the right people. So I ended up building my own tribe, and today that is awesome. We call them the Movisors for Mohuman advisors, but it's a group of great people. So how did I get here? And I'm just going to spend a couple minutes. Can I share my screen? Is that?
Yeah, I'll
Okay.
let you.
Okay. So this is, if you've got questions about this, you know, that's fine. I am just going to pull up my LinkedIn page so that we can start from the bottom and go through quickly, because it's in chronological order, so you can see where I came from. And then I'm going to just stop and let's talk, right? Let's talk about what you guys are doing, what you want to do, and let's do this, because I'm an entrepreneur in residence at UCSD as well. And it's an honor position, but one of my aims, what I have to do and what I do, is to help entrepreneurs find their path, develop, especially social justice focused companies and organizations. So let's go through this. All right. Can you guys see this? My LinkedIn page. Don't judge me too much. Let's start at the bottom. All right. So I actually came to this country in 1995-ish. And I did my degree in biology at Hunter College in CUNY in New York City. I wanted to do medicine, but I couldn't do medicine because I faint when I see blood and anything like that. My knees feel weird, and but I also really enjoyed research. So I did my PhD in molecular biology, specifically on viruses, very similar to the coronavirus. And that ended in 2008 at Princeton University. It was a great experience, actually. That's where I found out about a AAAS fellowship, because there's a very famous fellow who was a roommate of mine, Ali Nouri, who is being selected by President Biden as Assistant Secretary for Energy, the Department of Energy. So that's great. We've had parallel careers in DC. Me on the executive branch, him on the congressional branch. So after that, I went to DC to do policy, because I felt like I could impact science more by bringing more funding to researchers, because they were defunding the NIH and NSF at that time. So I joined the Federation of American Scientists, where I did want to do the fellowship, but it wasn't the right timing for me. The application when I was graduating, it just couldn't work out. So I joined as a director, like a program manager, the director of biology policy at the Federation of American Scientists. Today, I'm a board member, an executive board member there. I like to think I'm occupying Albert Einstein's board seat, because they were the founder of this organization in 1945. So that's a huge link to affecting policy here in the United States in DC. If you've heard of the Day One project that helped the Biden administration for science and technology, that came out of the Federation of American Scientists. I founded while there the Virtual Biosecurity Center to bring the world together around public health and biosecurity. And at the same time, that's when I was like, I can create things. So I created my own company called Pandemic Academic. Only a scientist from academia would create a company with that name. And it did well. I mean, we had a platform that was democratized public health information and tracking of diseases and food poisoning outbreaks and so on. It was really forward thinking back then. In fact, the CIA and these groups were really interested in it because I worked with intelligence and biosecurity as well. And then it was the right time to, around that time, I applied for the fellowship because I felt like I couldn't have the impact and policy I wanted on the outside of the government. What was it like on the inside? And this was the best way, like you all know. So I went into the AAAS fellowship, had a great time at the NSF, got really lucky, got to do the big data R&D policy for the country that was published by the White House with a bunch of other fellows that we brought in. Next generation internet, next smart cities, all of these things, all the smart cities programs at the time we helped to create at the NSF. I got to work a lot with the White House as well, OSTP, which was awesome. And after that, I left DC to move to San Diego, and I joined US Ignite, which was a nonprofit that we had funded through the NSF. So they were like, hey, what are you doing now? I'm like, I don't know. I'm going to San Diego with my wife and kid. And they were like, you want to run the program? You guys just fund it. I was like, sure, if I can work from San Diego. And the reason we were moving to San Diego is because the type of lifestyle we had in DC wasn't very good for having a child. And I didn't want to outsource a kid, right? We have a kid because we want a child. So we ran data analytics, and long story short, we ended up moving to San Diego without knowing what I would do. There's no policy work here at the time, none of it. Anyway, work there, got really frustrated that I was managing 30-something cities and we weren't working with communities, marginalized communities, digitally underserved communities, poor communities, communities of color. All of the technologies for cities were for the upper half of that digital divide. And I tried to get them to the cities to work on this, to put resources towards it, to embrace these communities, but they didn't want to. It was too hard, or they didn't know how to do it. So in 2018, I was like, screw this, probably for the worst, but I don't know. I founded Mohuman, which is a digital equity nonprofit. And this was before COVID. And the idea here was to create a place that would enable cutting edge projects and people to have a space so that we can incubate ideas that will help the digitally underserved and low-income communities around this country. And then they break off into their own businesses or nonprofits or initiatives. So that was my goal. Then COVID hit, and all of a sudden, digital inequities was the biggest thing. Awareness of it and the impact of it significantly amplified. So that ended up with Mohuman just having a lot more responsibility in this world. Communities trusted us. It was just, there was no going back at that time, right? Even if we didn't have the funding at the time, there was just no going back because we value community first. And by building the coalitions and the community trust in these low-income communities, they depended on us because there are a lot of organizations that worked at communities and not with them, like I mentioned earlier. And that was the difference of what we do. Yeah, so I'm on some other boards and so on. They asked me to be an entrepreneur in residence at UCSD because I live here. That's great. I work with the Qualcomm Institute, the lead for that at UCSD. They also asked me to be a director of digital equity at the Extension Center at UCSD for continued education, but it's consultative, so I'm independent from the university. And yeah, so that's my trajectory. That's how I got here. That's what I'm doing. Now, some interesting things about where I am today, and if I'm happy doing this, hell yeah, I wouldn't do anything else. I'm stressed a lot of the times. I can't work from anywhere like I thought I would. We will have global impact. We are affecting policy and people on the ground. And then there are cool things like I gave a talk for AAAS fellowship, and Caitlin, who's on this call, right? Caitlin reached out to me. She was in San Diego. She's at the director's office at the NIH. And what ended up happening was she wanted to see if she can volunteer with us to work on our digital health work for low-income and digitally underserved communities. Long story short, that turned into, you know what, Caitlin, if you don't mind talking about how that came about and how it turned into our current relationship, I think it might be really interesting for some of the fellows to hear, because they could also be doing very similar things for their careers.
Sure, yes. Hi, everyone. I had mentioned this in the start, but I know some people were joining a little bit later. So great to meet some of you and see you all. Yes, as Nishal mentioned, I had heard him speak at a AAAS career symposium and had contacted him about volunteering. And it was actually more just the first initial conversation was just to learn more about what he's doing in San Diego, since I'm also located in San Diego. And we were talking about, opportunities for us to collaborate. I know every agency is different. I'm with the National Institutes of Health, and I'm a federal employee. I know some people are contractors or employed in other ways. But for the National Institutes of Health, I was able to volunteer with Mohuman as part of my official duties. I had to go through the ethics office and get it approved and everything. But it's been really great because I can participate in meetings like during working hours and use my laptop that has been given to me from NIH and some of the resources there. There's obviously a lot of restrictions for like what I can do and who I can tell what, but there's still a lot of opportunity for me to work with community members and to work even with academia and to use their resources. So just to give some background about what I've been doing with Mohuman, as a fellow at the National Institutes of Health, I have more of a health background and health expertise. So Nishal was in the process of developing the digital health stack of Mohuman. So I know he hasn't talked much about what Mohuman does, but once we provide internet service to low-income communities, they have access to some resources that Mohuman has created. And one of them we intend to be of digital health resources. So I'm helping to kind of build up our strategy around that, to consult with both community members and academia about what might be best practices for this, and to start thinking about, what resources these communities actually need to help their digital health experience. So that's been my experience. It's been really great. Definitely have seen a lot of like ups and downs, and seeing all the details about what it's like to work for a nonprofit, and what kind of resources they have, who they can collaborate with. Nishal has been, obviously, like you said, very community focused. We've had a lot of really great contact with community members and community-based organizations. So if anyone has any questions about how they might be able to do a similar thing with their agency, I'm happy to help answer anything.
Thanks, Caitlin. And from our perspective, I'm able to help Caitlin increase her network to leaders not only in San Diego, but in digital health, but across the United States and internationally when she wants that. But she also gets to experience this whole social impact side, direct communication and working with communities. So, top of NIH down to communities that are just low income, that never have a seat at the table, community-based organizations that never have a say in anything, yet they're serving these people every day. So that's the bridge we're forming. And for us, we get the digital stack built out with someone awesome. We will look to fund that once we've done a gap analysis and figured out where we want to go and what's best for the community in digital health. And then, if that's something Caitlin is interested in, once we have the funding, I mean, who better to come over and run that if she'd like? I know she's from industry, so nonprofits probably like, And I didn't tell you much about what Mohuman does because I don't think it really matters. We're helping communities for this in this meeting. So if you want to know more, I can tell you, but we are going to bridge the digital divide for this country within the next 5 years. We're going to hit all of those systemic inequities and we're going to do it. It's very different the way we do things. But what I wanted to do, and I hope everybody in the call will talk, otherwise I'm going to start calling people because it's such a short list. But let's just,
Dr. Mohan, if I can interrupt you a little bit.
Sure.
I would like to ask you to talk a little bit, just like a little, your mission at Mohuman, and so we all understand what you're doing. And then if you can take us 3 years ago when you start that, and like tell us a little bit, how was it start the organization? How did you recruit your first people to work with you? And how did you get your first fundraising going?
Oh, those are great questions. So let's talk about Mohuman. So our vision for Mohuman is that we want to drive the transfer of power and resources to these digitally underserved people and communities through access to the internet and digital service for, work, school, health, and government engagement. A lot of these communities cannot afford internet service, so they don't have access to the digital services they need for, life. So we started out thinking our mission was, yes, we're technology driven, and we wanted to help these individuals and families access digital service to improve their lives. But what we quickly found out, even working with city governments, was that the internet service providers and the city government weren't going to help the people, especially during the pandemic. We really tried. I put a lot of effort into working with the previous mayor's office here in San Diego, and others around this country. But the conclusion was they weren't going to help. But these people were suffering. They didn't have internet access, so they couldn't do anything. So what I did, based on my experience through the fellowship and my background in technology and next generation internet and all of these things, I came up with a model that I've been thinking about for years, that universities, nonprofits, and communities should work together to help their communities. So we developed this relationship with, I just reached out to all the people I thought would fit into the model. So the Qualcomm Institute at UCSD, Ramesh Rao, who runs that, reached out directly to him. Now we're collaborating. They're leaders in wireless technology. So we talked to them. We talked to CNIC, which is a national research and education network that provides high-speed internet to universities and schools and so on. We got them involved. We found social good internet service provider services like Althea, which is an awesome org that's mission driven to help people. I just started to see how we could create our own internet service that was free or really low cost, and that was sustainable for these communities because nobody else would do it. And I was also aware of President Obama's promise zones that he had defined as some of the most economically depressed areas in the country. And San Diego had one. There are 22 across the country. So I decided we're going to work with promise zones because they're already federally defined. These are people who need the most help. And they're redlined, which means the internet service providers drew a red line around these communities and said, we can't make money here. We're not going to invest in infrastructure for these people to provide the high-speed internet like everybody else that you and I and all of us on this call probably have. So here we are, right, with a tagline that says, make the internet more human. We never set out, I am a virologist by training, right? That's my PhD. And here I am building an internet service, not to build it to compete with anybody, but just so we can deliver these digital services to help with systemic inequities, right? At the core of what we do at the start is a community. So we work with the communities, with the community-based organizations, and with residents. We build the internet. We provide access to platforms that deliver digital services in their area, whether that's for in food deserts, or learn to Zoom with your grandkid, get internet connectivity, or pathways towards working at Google for students, high school students. We also have education K through 12, digital education services that we're developing, the digital health that Caitlin's involved in. Of course, all this comes to advocacy. We work with researchers at these universities to do qualitative and quantitative analysis of everything that we do, surveys and everything, to collect the data and make sure that once we show our proofs of concept, that we're showing that we can do this and help people to get out of the lower half of the digital equity curve for cheaper, faster, and in a sustainable way. And it's all possible, right? Internet service providers, they're making a huge profit. There's no reason internet needs to be so expensive, or, the infrastructure. They get billions. President Biden's bringing $100 billion to infrastructure, broadband infrastructure. There's money everywhere for this. The ISPs take them. They lobby hard. So there's a danger to us here, but we're not taking anybody's money. We're just trying to help people who can't afford it. So that's where we are. Those things together, I think, is a holistic approach to helping people move up the economic ladder. Because in the end, it's not about getting you a computer or internet connection. It's about how those things enable you to get to your goals, to change, to have generational change through finances and what you do in life. So that's what we did. I mean, 3 years ago, when I started this, I was on top of my game in the smart cities world. And when I left it to start this company, there are a lot of people that were friends and that, had so much respect. Oh, the fund question. Okay, that'll be a fun one. I'll talk about that in a second. That stood back and were like, hey, Nishal, go do your thing. When I called on them, I didn't have the support because nobody wanted to tackle low-income communities. Why would you do that, right? I mean, there's no money in it. Who cares, right? They don't come up on anybody's radar. So people stood back, and I was alone, and I had to learn a new industry. I had to unlearn what I had known and relearn, which took like a year to break my mental thoughts on this stuff and relearn from the community's perspective, and not a community of practice where all of us are holding hands, running around in a circle, congratulating each other, saying, hey, we're doing a good job. We're actually helping people. No. So it was hard. Nobody wanted to help. And then I started to reach out to the people that I thought, some that I knew, but others that I didn't know that were in the industry, to help and to see what they were doing and how we can collaborate. And I just hustled. I started just reaching out. So a good story is GoFundMe. Andy Ballister, who co-founded GoFundMe. You guys know GoFundMe, right? To me, he's like the ultimate social justice guy, because he founded a company that helps so many people, right? I wanted to meet him, and he's in San Diego, but how do you reach somebody that's unreachable? So I reached out on LinkedIn, and then he replied, and I developed a relationship with him over time. And now his foundation is funding us at Mohuman, which is a big deal for us. So from that to reaching out to, the head of the Qualcomm Institute and saying, hey, we've got this idea for building a new model for internet for communities, and the university can play a big role in this. What's your wireless goals, and how do we align? What's the overlap? How do we all win from this? I have communities, you need communities, you want to do research. I need your technology. I need dynamic stuff. I don't need poor technology for poor people like everybody else wants. I want next gen cutting edge technology for people who were helped to, not giving a handout, but a hand up. So it worked out. It was just a hustle, finding those people and going after them. There were some people that would connect me to others that I did know, but I'm going to tell you, I was so disappointed in the smart cities world that they were so happy spending $94 billion in 2019 on smart technologies for cities without people's input. Half of those are shut down. None of them helped in the pandemic for education, jobs, or work. So it was just, it was hard. I mean, I had hair like Caitlin. No, actually, I lost it for that. But yeah, and how did I fund this? So, you know, my wife and I decided together that I would try this to make this work for a year because it saved up. And, you know, we were both from third world countries, poor there and in this country, and wanted to do something to help. So it was hard to get funding, but I also.
Yes, where are you from?
Oh, so I was born in Guyana in South America, so 8 years there, and then after that 8 years in an island in the Bahamas called Abaco. Not the fancy parts that tourists go to, but where the actual people who make tourists happy live. So, you know, electricity and indoor plumbing were technologies that I didn't have, these fancy things in some of these places. But over here, you know, computer and internet just helped me to do everything that I needed to. So in terms of funding, yeah, I funded this. I started this myself. I truly believe in not talking about, Caitlin can tell you about this. I can't lie. So I can't talk about stuff and say, this is amazing. This is what we're doing. This was, give me some money. I had to build proof of concepts to show myself and the world that these things can work. And then we go after the funding, right? So when COVID hit, all of the grants and all of the pipelines that we were in disappeared, right? And it sucked because I worked hard on a lot of this because it was more smart cities focused. And once the pandemic hit, it was all about, you know, a lot of different things. And then the digital divide started to emerge in everyone's eyes. It existed, but people didn't know about it. All of a sudden, it was a big deal. And to tell you the truth, I wanted to leave because I didn't know how I was going to fund this. I'd spent so much time building up what we had already built, and I had to continue and contract where I could. It's truly a bootstrapped nonprofit startup. So here we are now that we have our platforms and community coalitions and our internet service ready to launch, we've gone out and gotten funding. We've hit 100% of our funders, like what we asked for and what we applied to. So just within the last 30 days, we've been funded by 3 foundations and 3 really awesome foundations. We're going after bigger money, and we're actually forming a new entity, Mohuman Inc., which is a for-profit to operationalize the nonprofit. So that idea of creating a nonprofit for-profit, we think we figured it out, and we're doing that right now. And the workforce for all of this is going to come from the communities. We're going to train them and have them as the workforce, because our aim is to pilot here and then spread to the other promise zones across the US. And I'm already working with them, right? So yeah, the pandemic really was terrible for us, but also it was scary money-wise, and like how are we going to survive because everything was disappearing from the org. And secondly, it was really, really good for us. It's one of those things where it's the right time, because we could not be where we are today and have done such innovative stuff, I think accelerated by 25 years, without the pandemic showing up and accelerating the need for digital access for everyone. So it was fortunate. It truly is one of those right time in the right place type of things. And it's terrible to say because so many people lost their lives and it was so devastating economically for so many people. But long term, this is one of the best things that could have happened for us.
Yeah, so can you share a little bit how, so do you have now employees in your organization, or is it all run by volunteers?
Yeah, so that's the interesting thing. If you look at my website, you will see, so I am a doer. I get things done like a lot, from coding to everything. And I felt like I was prepared because of all of this nonsense that I thought I had learned and picked up over the years. but it all came in from branding to coding to you know, policy work, everything. So I could do a lot of it, and I enjoyed it as a bootstrap startup person. We have excellent people who have come to us to volunteer because they have lived experience, or they understand the cause and want to be a part of it. So we've done this in voluntary work. We have an awesome group of advisors and a board that really helps us a lot, because it's truly like community driven. The way we work with the communities is that they do a lot of the work with us. So I don't want to tell the community what to do. We're bringing the tech and, you know, the opportunity side, but they're doing the community work. We're just, you know, facilitating the communities around digital access. You know, with the funding now, we've got our first big senior hire. I anticipate we're going to hire a bunch more people. And everybody who's volunteered with us gets first preference for jobs with us because they're so dedicated to the cause and we trust each other. So I will tell you that at the Federation of American Scientists, I grew to, like, my department, we had like total of 20 probably people and contractors very quickly. And I never want that again. I really enjoy a small, tight-knit, trusted powerhouse doer group, right? That cares about people and that wants to have fun doing it. So I want to keep the team small and be very selective, because people ask to volunteer a lot and I say no because they just, you know, I appreciate it, but we need the right people as well. That's the great thing about founding your own company, right? You can choose. And also we kept it really diverse. So, you know, our board, you know, men, women, people of color, backgrounds, lived experiences, our staff, you know, our advisors, it's one of the most diverse. It's hilarious to me when I meet people that are like, oh, everything's so diverse. That's the way it should be. I'm like, what are you talking about? These are the people I know and work with all my life. You know, these are the people I know. I'm not just hanging out with one type of crowd, you know? So we're setting an example as well. So that's how we found our people, through, feels like a vetting process for people who care, who volunteer with us. And I try to accommodate that. And yes, we will expand outside of promise zones. Organizations like the People-Centered Internet, that was founded by the founder of the CRM software and the inventor of the internet. They have partnered with us. Mei Lin, she's on my board, who runs that org. But them and others are working with us to expand this outside of the United States as well. So once we show this, promise zones are easy because they need the help. I'm already connected with the coalition of promise zones. But yeah, we're going to spread it wherever it's needed. That's the aim. And with enough nucleation points, right? Before companies and the government know that there are enough proof points, along with other partners that are doing similar things in this country, that they can't ignore the changes, right? Before they know it, it's like, wow, it's change that's pushed from the bottom and we have no choice because the communities are doing this together and it's affordable. You know, it's not a monopoly dictated by corporations. So yes, I'm really personally excited to help everyone, but especially go back to the Caribbean and South America to do this. What surprised me most about working in the nonprofit world? You know, I think my mindset surprised me a lot because I've been in the nonprofit world for a very, very long time. And I thought in the nonprofits and the people and all these big time meetings that we have and, you know, workshops and conferences and everything, I really thought that, and as a fellow, we work at a different level, right? You know, you're not working at a CBO in, you know, a food bank, for example. But, you know, I really thought we were helping people directly. You know, all these funds that we were getting, I didn't really understand how these funds flowed to the staff, to overhead, and to nonsense work that really didn't benefit the cause that they were for. this is why funders defund things. I also didn't understand really well foundations, like these really, really rich people who put their money for tax write-offs, and they have their pet ideas that they want to fund that's not necessarily going to help the world, but it just makes them feel good, right? A lot are like that. So I was just really surprised by that, and I had to create something where I could actually help the people, where I could bridge the funding and the resources with the actual people. Every dollar that comes into us goes to these communities, not our pocket or like universities, 58% overhead for some of them. So yeah, the nonprofit world it's not as social justice focused as I thought it was. Very few. It's hard. It's easier to do a for-profit company and raise money and make profits than a nonprofit, because nobody wants to help poor people. Nobody. There's no money in it. So why would you help people who can't support business and all of these things, right? We can't make money from it. It's sick. But it's the way things are. What advice do you have for fellows looking for the next career opportunity? So that's why I'm really excited that Caitlin was here, because you do have the opportunity. So hopefully you have an idea of what you would like to do, right? If not, reach out to me. I can help you go through this, because as an EIR, I mean, I've done this for many, many people and mentored many, many people. You could also just ignore me as an idiot, whichever. I'm here, if whatever you want. But I think right now you should figure out what you think you want to do, and really start reaching out to those groups and people right now. You know, when I was a fellow, it was like everything. Oh, it's networking. It's all about networking. And this stuff just felt like, it felt so contrived and like calculated. Like, find something that you're interested in. If that's in a biotech company or a nonprofit or something, and just reach out. The higher up these people are, reach out to them on LinkedIn, see who you know that can introduce you, just go meet them, do whatever. But get a conversation with these people. The higher up they are, the more likely they are to talk to you in many cases, right? So just go find what you want to do, go explore those areas, talk to those people, see if that's something that you really want to do. And those are the things that will result in your jobs. I got to tell you, like, I don't know many fellows that got jobs just by applying for them, right? Like in your next career step, like all of my friends, somebody had to know you. It's who you know, right? It's like who knows you, right? And it's not about who you know, it's about who knows you. So you gotta like think about this differently. Go talk to these people, not in like, oh, I got a network or any, like, be sincerely interested. Don't waste your time or theirs. Be sincerely interested in the thing and continue that relationship if you can. And that's how these things, they'll connect you to other people. Always ask, like, who else should I be talking to, for what I'm interested in? Can you make an introduction? And that's how it happens. It's really scary. That's why I'm talking to you guys today, because it was hard for me and a lot of people to find jobs afterwards. Like AAAS didn't help us. The other fellows couldn't help us. The government, unless you wanted to work in the government people couldn't help us outside of the government, right? It was hard. So start doing that now. I hope that Caitlin and I can write a paper, and maybe Sci on the Fly we were talking about, and then The Hill, about how do fellows get some time to, it works because it's free labor for an org or a company and they get the experience, and then like the NIH, they're getting feedback on community, what communities think about digital health and the way it actually is, instead of just from researchers. So everybody wins. And if we can have a program where fellows are, working with another entity they would like to go to on a voluntary basis, covered by your current fellowship position, even if it's just a couple of hours. If we can all try to do that this year, there's still time. I think with enough pushing, this can become a new mechanism for fellows to make that transition. Okay. What were some of the other nonprofit company ideas that you had, and what made you go with Mohuman's mission? So Mohuman started off as a policy organization to build awareness of that smart cities technologies should be co-developed with the people they're meant to serve. San Diego put $30 million into smart streetlights with sensors and cameras and all these things that collected data, and they didn't have any idea what problem it would solve. We collect data, then we'll solve problem with data and analytics. Well, turned out that the city council didn't sign off on it. The police started using it to target certain populations. They didn't have the privacy and security policies in place. And $30 million is now shut down in these smart streetlights. 30 million, they just give light. They're the dumbest smart lights in the country. And this is what happened throughout this country with a lot of the smart tech. So it started off there. You know, I also am a biologist, and I wanted to be a marine biologist. So I was thinking of starting a nonprofit that helped with coral restoration on coral reefs, because that's one of my passions, especially since I'm from the island. So that was another idea. After talking and evolving my thought process, Mohuman also was like, what about a survey company, right? To get the people's opinion so we can feed it to politicians and everyone else, qualitative and quantitative stories. And then after working through that, I mean, I have to put together the 10 one-pagers for Mohuman and how it's evolved over time. But it was really because of COVID that the mission really focused on, it was moving towards digital service. It was digital services with the people, right? For cities, but it's moved into digital services for all aspects of life. And then we had to build the internet. So it evolved. It pushed me in that direction. As an entrepreneur, you want to make sure that the people with the problems push you to the solutions, not dictate what the solution is and then say, use it. And that's how the mission evolved. And that's how it became what it was today, because I was open-minded to change into what people actually needed, not what I thought they wanted. Because what I thought they wanted was too much. there was just so many missing things between that and where they were. Yeah, so those are great questions. Let's chat, whatever you need. If you've got a company idea now, if you're thinking of something, let's talk about it if you can. What are you guys thinking about next? I mean, how are you going to have you already found your next career move, or how are you going about doing this right now? Marcia, I know you talked about you work with a nonprofit as well.
Yeah, I do. I would love to chat with you after that, because I funded a nonprofit when I came to DC about a year and a half ago. And so in the very early stages, but likewise with you, our nonprofit also has a mission that was right in the core of the pandemic. So in a way, we benefited from the pandemic in a good way, because I think we can support more people. So Dimension Science's mission is to support inclusion of minorities and underrepresented minorities in science and technology fields. And we are focused on, we're doing that by giving scholarships and awards to early stage scientists, but they have to be in a minority population. And so we do that internationally. We have programs in Brazil, which is the country I come from, and also in the US, and we are now planning to expand. But like you, we started with a small group of people and an idea. And we were expecting like to have about a year to develop that, but the pandemic hit and kind of pushed us to do things. So in less than a year, we've done put together several programs that are helping placing scientists around the world. So that is rewarding. But like yourself, I thank you for being so honest, because I think this group, one of the objectives here is also to give that reality check. It's not easy. Like it's nice to talk about the success stories, but behind the success story, there's a lot of challenges and failures, if you will, and fundraisings that didn't work, or sometimes fundraising that seems really promising, but as you said, some donations or nonprofit comes with like the donor wants you to do something that's good for them, not for the public. So I really appreciate how honest you were, and like kind of this reality check is like, okay, it's really challenging, it's really difficult, and how you prepare. So my question is how you keep yourself motivated, because sometimes it can be challenging, as you said. And so what are your like ways of keep you on mission and motivated despite the challenges?
Yeah, that's an important thing, because the bootstrapping world is really hard on multiple levels. And Caitlin has seen the ups and downs, like she mentioned, because there's going to be a week where every day sometimes feels like we're going to fail tomorrow, right? We've got this big work. Nobody from the outside thinks that's like, oh, it's amazing, right? If I didn't, but then it's like, I wake up and I'm like, we're going to fail today. We're literally going to crash down. It's a house of cards, right? Everything's got to work seamlessly. Or I'm going to wake up one week and feel really depressed and be like, I can't do this anymore. Why am I doing this? Why would it people, who am I helping? Why would these people even care that I'm helping? They probably don't care. Do they even, am I helping? I know I'm helping people, but who gives a crap, right? The funders, the people, I mean, do I even matter? All of these things. And I have the confidence finally that I can do this. I know I can do this. I was built to do this and to suffer for it, I feel sometimes. There are a couple of things that motivate me. One is I have a 9-year-old, and I also have some issues where some health issues, and I want to make sure that everything I do is really awesome and motivates him to be a better person, and also to motivate, like Caitlin and the rest of the people in this world to do better and to help. Because my success, I said Mohuman is like an incubator for knowledge, people, ideas. I'm not going to save the world, but if we can activate networks of people to save the world, then we've expanded what our impact on this world. So building my own tribe of Movisors and people like Caitlin and others that keep me going, that's of the same mindset. In fact, I just founded another company with 2 other PhDs in computer science who are social good people, former administration people. We founded a company just to create an app for dog dating because it would be fun. We do social justice stuff, right? But we're never going to be, we do that all the time, but we want to do something fun. And we're like, let's do dog dating. So, so we're going to build it, right? So these types of things motivate me. It's people that motivate me. Also, when you hear the stories of the suffering that these people have, like single moms with 2 jobs that have to take their 2 daughters to the school parking lot at 6 o'clock at night on a mobile phone with limited data so they can tap into Wi-Fi to look at the homework. I mean, these are the types of things that are just, that's a dog walking in the back, by the way, if you shaggy tail. These things motivate me. No matter how bad I feel, someone's got it worse, and I feel that I got to help fix it. So, yeah.
No, unfortunately, we're coming to the end of
hold
our time.
on. One last thing.
Oh.
You asked about motivation, okay? I would suggest that every entrepreneur here look into Austin Kleon's trilogy of books. It's called Keep Going, Steal Like an Artist, Keep Going, and Show Your Work, right? these things I keep on my desk because they inspire me. I don't know the dude, right? Especially this one. And I think right now in your careers, it's important that you get your work out there and your thoughts and start sharing with the world, because that's, if people don't know you and who you are and what you're doing, nobody's gonna, I said, it's not about who you know, it's about who knows you. So please read these books. They're pretty awesome because, you know, they're easy to read, but I have not reread any books as much as I read these. So go out and get these, all three of them. I think you would be really inspired, and it would help you to think about how to frame your career to the world so that they know you.
Well, thank you, Dr. Mohan, and thank you everybody that came here today. And I also want to acknowledge Dr. Weinberg, one of our speakers here today. Thank you for attending, and I well, hope you see you guys next month again. We will take a little recess of speakers, but we will do a couple of sessions that will be recruitment and also planning the fall season. We will bring back a series of speakers in the fall, and we would like to involve all of you on the programming for the next semester. So thank you again. Really great to hear from you, and we're looking forward to continue this conversation, because this forum here is exactly for that, to create new connections, but we want these connections to continue after this forum. Thank you, Dr. Mohan and everybody. See you again next month.
One last thing, Dr. Mohan, someone is asking about the name of the other two books. I put Show Your Work. Is the series called Show Your Work, or is it?
No, it's Show Your Work, Keep Going, and Steal Like an Artist. Just go to Austin Kleon, just Google him. He's got the best newsletter in the country.
Okay.
Just go to his website and get all three of those books. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you again.
All right. Thank you guys so much.
Bye,
And if you
everyone.
need anything from me, contact me, okay?